Tell me, have you noticed how the human mind is addicted to tormenting itself with tomorrow? We wake up with the sun on our face, but instead of drinking in the miracle of life, we choke on thoughts of what hasn't even happened yet. Bills not yet due, problems not yet real, catastrophes not yet born. The future, that invisible thief, has become our greatest enemy, not because of what it brings, but because of what we imagine it will bring. We spend years of life rehearsing disasters that never come, entire lifetimes wasted playing chess games with shadows, preparing for battles that never arrive. Anxiety about the future, what is it really, if not a lack of faith in your own power to adapt? You tremble not because tomorrow is terrifying, but because you haven't yet decided to trust yourself in it. Do you think Thomas Edison worried himself sick every night, wondering if the world would laugh at his 1,000 failures? Or do you believe he surrendered his life to discovery so completely that the laughter of men became irrelevant noise? When Henry Ford set out to build an automobile that every man and woman could afford, do you think he stayed awake, haunted by the fear of markets collapsing or critics tearing him apart? No. These titans of industry were not fearless, they were faithful. Faithful to their vision, faithful to their purpose, faithful to their inner conviction that the future bends to the will of the prepared and disciplined mind. And yet, here you are, lying awake at night, drenched in sweat, afraid of outcomes that may never exist. That, my friend, is the great tragedy of the modern soul. We have become slaves, not to chains of iron, but to projections of the mind. Let me remind you of something eternal. The future has never once arrived as you pictured it. It has always been stranger, harsher, richer, and more mysterious. And still, you are here, still breathing, still capable, still alive. What does that mean? It means you have survived every version of tomorrow so far, every single one. So I must ask you, what exactly are you afraid of? Anxiety is the mind's rebellion against faith. It is the imagination used against itself. That same imagination that could paint a masterpiece, build an empire, or invent a machine that changes the world, it turns inward, poisoning your spirit with visions of ruin. The very tool God gave you to create, you use to destroy yourself. But I'll tell you this, the man or woman who learns to master this restless imagination, who learns to bend it toward vision instead of worry, toward creation instead of destruction, that person becomes unstoppable, because the future is not meant to be predicted, it is meant to be built. Look at Elon Musk. Do you think he knew with certainty that rockets would land themselves or that electric cars would dominate the streets? No. Certainty was never his ally. Conviction was. And conviction grows not from knowing the future, but from deciding that whatever the future holds, you will meet it with relentless force. Anxiety whispers, what if I fail? Conviction roars, then I will rise again and again and again until failure bows to me. You see, the problem is not that you fear the future, it's that you have forgotten who you are in it. You are not a victim of tomorrow. You are the architect of it. And architects do not tremble at the empty lot. They envision the cathedral, and brick by brick they bring it into existence. Let's strip this down even further. The real cause of anxiety is not the uncertainty of the future, but the uncertainty of your preparation. If you were prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, would you fear what comes? Would you fear the storm if you had built your house upon stone instead of sand? Of course not. So when you find yourself choking on dread about what may happen next year, next week, or even in the next hour, stop asking, what if the future breaks me? And start asking, am I training myself to be unbreakable? This is why I said, you are the master of your destiny. You can influence, direct, and control your own environment. You can make your life what you want it to be. That is not a slogan, it is a warning. Because if you refuse to master your mind, it will master you. And nothing enslaves faster than fear of tomorrow. Think about Abraham Lincoln. At the height of Civil War, when the very fabric of America was tearing apart, when half the nation hated him enough to assassinate him if given the chance, do you think he curled up in paralysis about the future? No. He rose each morning with conviction, saying, I walk slowly, but I never walk backward. Anxiety freezes you. Discipline moves you. Discipline, that is the antidote. Not the shallow self-care you've been sold. Not the sugar-coated positivity of everything will be okay. Discipline, the raw steel of self-command, the daily act of bending your mind and body into alignment with your highest purpose. Discipline is what strangles anxiety in its crib. Because the disciplined man wakes up and acts not because he knows what tomorrow holds, but because he knows who he will be when tomorrow comes. You must understand this. Peace does not come from certainty. Peace comes from preparation. Warriors sleep calmly before battle, not because they know the outcome, but because they have trained so ruthlessly that they trust themselves regardless of the outcome. That is the secret. Not controlling the future, but controlling yourself. Anxiety about the future is nothing more than the fear of facing yourself unprepared. So, train. Train your mind with books, with vision, with faith. Train your body with strength, with resilience, with health. Train your soul with gratitude, with prayer, with meditation. Then watch what happens. The future stops being a nightmare and becomes a canvas. Because suddenly you realize whatever it brings, you will paint it with your own brush. Do you know why most people die never having tasted true freedom? It's not because the world is against them. It's not because life was too hard. It's because they surrendered their imagination to fear instead of vision. They rehearsed tragedy until tragedy became their only prayer. You must decide differently. You must declare war against this parasite called anxiety. And you do it not by waiting for the perfect future to calm your nerves, but by becoming the kind of person who thrives in chaos, who bends uncertainty into opportunity, who builds where others collapse. That is the only path. That is the only way forward. Do you understand now why every great man and woman carried themselves with a quiet fire, even when the world around them was falling apart? It wasn't because they had special luck or divine foresight. It was because they learned the most critical truth of all. The future belongs not to those who fear it, but to those who forge it. So the next time anxiety strangles you with its claws, I want you to stand tall, breathe deeply, and remind yourself, I am the architect. I am the builder. I am the master of what comes next. Because if you don't, if you allow anxiety to rule you, then you will die not once, but every day long before the grave. But if you master yourself, if you take the hammer of discipline and the fire of vision and strike the stone of your life every single day, then you will not fear tomorrow. You will welcome it, because you will know whatever it holds, it cannot break you. But let us go deeper, because discipline alone is not enough if it isn't fueled by vision. The reason most people collapse under the weight of tomorrow is not simply because they are undisciplined. It is because they are blind. They wander through life without clarity, stumbling into the future as if it were a dark alley instead of a road they themselves could pave. Clarity is the antidote to confusion, and confusion is the breeding ground of anxiety. When you don't know where you're going, every noise in the dark feels like a monster. But when you are clear, when you have burned your destination into the walls of your mind, suddenly the shadows lose their power. Think of Walt Disney. Do you imagine he had no fear when people mocked him, calling his dreams childish fantasies? Of course he had fear, but he had clarity that burned brighter than fear. He saw a world that did not yet exist, and because he saw it so vividly, the ridicule of others became background static. The future was not a prison for him, it was a playground. Clarity, then, is not simply having goals. Anyone can write down a wish list and call it ambition. True clarity is obsession. It is seeing your future so vividly that your present rearranges itself in obedience to that vision. It is when every step you take, every choice you make, every breath you draw points toward that destiny. Without clarity, discipline collapses into empty grind. You work hard but feel hollow. You push forward but have no compass. That is why so many wake up with dread. They are disciplined slaves to nothingness. They are busy, but blind. So I ask you, what is it that you see when you dare to close your eyes and look into your own future? Not the fears, not the failures, but the vision. Can you picture it clearly? Can you see yourself standing there, victorious, accomplished, alive with purpose? If not, then you must begin again, not in tomorrow, but in your mind. For the mind is the workshop of the soul, as I declared. Every cathedral, every empire, every invention that has reshaped humanity was first a thought, burning hot in the furnace of clarity. And here lies a paradox. Anxiety and vision are twins, born of the same parent imagination. One poisons you, the other saves you. One enslaves, the other liberates. One tells you the story of your destruction, the other tells you the story of your creation. The choice is yours. How will you use the most powerful force you have been given? Look at Steve Jobs. His future was no less uncertain than yours. He was fired from the very company he founded. He was mocked, doubted, betrayed. Yet his clarity of vision, that relentless obsession with simplicity, elegance, and user experience pulled him through. He didn't merely fight anxiety. He drowned it beneath the weight of his conviction. He saw something the world didn't, and that sight carried him past every storm. If you want to slay the dragon of anxiety, sharpen the sword of clarity. Write your vision. Speak it. Envision it every single day until it is more real than the fear. Because here is the truth. You cannot think your way out of anxiety by analyzing it. You cannot negotiate with fear. You can only starve it. And you starve it by feeding vision. But clarity must be anchored in belief. For what is vision without belief? It is a mirage, a cruel illusion. Belief is the bridge that carries clarity into reality. Belief is the unseen law of the universe that I spent my life proclaiming. He called it faith, the ability to see the invisible, to trust in what cannot yet be touched. Faith is not naivety. Faith is not blind optimism. Faith is an act of will. It is the decision to say, though I cannot see the path yet, I know it is mine to walk, and I will walk it until the ground itself rises to meet my feet. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, carried such faith. Do you think he knew every detail of how to dominate the steel industry when he began? No. But he believed so deeply in the possibilities of industry, in the power of organized business, that his faith magnetized men, money, and momentum into his orbit. That is the power of belief. It turns the invisible into the inevitable. And yet, here is where most people fall. They believe only in their fears. They believe only in their weaknesses. They put more trust in their doubts than in their dreams. And so, naturally, their future manifests as proof of what they rehearsed in their minds. But you must be different. You must train your belief like a muscle. How? By repetition, by evidence, by surrounding yourself with people, ideas, and stories that reinforce your conviction, by acting even when you are afraid, so that your actions become proof that belief is not wasted. Do not underestimate this. The world bends not to the strongest or even the smartest, but to the most convicted. History is not a tale of certainty. It is a tale of believers. Men and women who saw what was not there, believed in it with every cell of their being, and acted until the world bowed to their vision. So what do we have now? Discipline to prepare, clarity to see, belief to trust, and now purpose. Because without purpose, even the greatest belief will wither. Purpose is the soul's anchor. Without it, every wave of anxiety drags you into despair. With it, no storm can sink you. Purpose is the why behind the vision, the fire that fuels discipline, the reason belief endures even when logic screams, quit. Consider Martin Luther King, Jr. His purpose was so powerful that even threats of death could not shake him. He once said, if a man hasn't discovered something he will die for, he isn't fit to live. That is purpose. It takes anxiety, the trembling of the soul, and transforms it into courage. Your purpose is not found in comfort. It is not discovered in distraction. It is unearthed in silence, in suffering, in the deep questioning of what you were placed on this earth to do. Purpose is not given, it is chosen. You decide. And once you decide, it becomes the compass that steadies you when the future feels like a raging sea. Now, when you combine discipline, clarity, belief, and purpose, something extraordinary happens. Anxiety doesn't vanish, but it bows. It becomes fuel. Because now, every whisper of what if it goes wrong becomes an opportunity to answer. Then I will still rise, because my vision, my belief, my purpose will not let me fall. But still the story is not complete. For what is all of this without action? Action is the great equalizer. It is the chisel that carves the marble of imagination into the statue of reality. Without action, anxiety festers, because the mind becomes a stagnant swamp. An idle mind magnifies fear. A busy mind dissolves it. Anxiety thrives in hesitation. It suffocates in momentum. That is why the simplest cure for dread is often movement, doing the very thing you are afraid of, taking one step, breaking the cycle of paralysis. Henry Ford once said, you can't build a reputation on what you are going to do. The world does not reward your plans, your daydreams, or your worries. It rewards your results. And results come only to the man who acts. Do you know why soldiers march? Not only to cover ground, but to keep fear from overtaking them. The rhythm of movement drowns out the whispers of terror. And so must you march daily, consistently forward, because each act of courage, no matter how small, is a victory over the tyranny of tomorrow. And do not mistake me, action is not recklessness. Action without thought is chaos. But action with vision, belief, purpose, and discipline, that is destiny in motion. That is how mountains are moved, inventions are born, nations are freed. So here we stand, with the pillars of an unshakable soul: discipline, clarity, belief, purpose, and action. With these, anxiety loses its throne. It may still exist, it may still whisper, but it no longer rules. You rule. But let me ask you, what happens when your discipline falters, when your vision blurs, when belief wavers, when purpose feels distant and even action seems impossible? What happens when life strikes harder than you imagined, when the future you feared actually arrives, and it is even worse than your darkest dream? This is where most people collapse, because they believe success was supposed to be smooth, predictable, and fair. They believe that once they found purpose, the seas would calm and the winds would obey. But life is not a servant. Life is a storm, and the future will test you. And so you must build resilience. Resilience is the art of being broken and refusing to stay broken. It is the muscle of the soul that only grows under the weight of suffering. You cannot buy resilience. You cannot fake it. You can only earn it by walking through fire and emerging scarred but still standing. Think of Abraham Lincoln again. He failed in business, lost election after election, battled depression so deep it nearly destroyed him, buried 2 children, and led a country at war with itself. Yet he became one of the most revered leaders in history. Why? Because resilience became his crown. Every failure, every tragedy, every heartbreak forged in him a strength deeper than anxiety. He did not survive because the future was kind. He survived because he was unkillable in spirit. And you must become the same. Resilience means you stop asking for an easy future. It means you start praying for the strength to face any future. Because anxiety is nothing more than the fear that you will not survive what comes. Resilience is the proof that you will. But resilience alone is not enough, for the world does not remain still. The future shifts, bends, transforms. That is why the second great power is adaptability. Charles Darwin never said survival of the fittest. He said survival belongs to those most adaptable to change. The oak tree that refuses to bend is the first to break in the storm. The reed that bends survives. And so it is with you. If you demand that the future obey your rigid plan, you will live in constant terror. But if you adapt, if you flow, if you learn to turn the unexpected into opportunity, then the future cannot defeat you. Consider Thomas Edison again. Thousands of failed attempts to invent the light bulb. Thousands. Each failure would have been enough to drown a man in despair. But Edison did not collapse. He adapted. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10 zero ways that won't work." That is not anxiety. That is adaptability. That is resilience fused with vision. So when the future does not arrive as you hoped, do not let anxiety devour you. Adapt. Ask, how can I use this? How can I bend this? How can I make even this serve me? Because here is the truth. Anxiety thrives in rigidity. The more you demand that life unfold exactly as you imagined, the more you suffer when it doesn't. But the adaptable soul bends without breaking, and so nothing can destroy it. Now, let us move to something even deeper, gratitude. You may wonder, what does gratitude have to do with anxiety about the future? Everything. Because gratitude roots you in the present, and anxiety is the addiction to the future. You cannot feel both at the same time. Gratitude is the antidote that pulls your spirit back to now, reminding you that life is not just about what is coming, but about what already is. Think of it. When you are consumed with dread about tomorrow, what you are really saying is, what I have today is not enough. I must have certainty about tomorrow in order to feel peace. But gratitude says, even if tomorrow is uncertain, today I have breath, I have strength, I have opportunities, I have life. And that is enough to fight another day. Look at Viktor Frankl, a man imprisoned in the horrors of the concentration camps, surrounded by death, stripped of every freedom, forced to face a future that seemed only filled with pain. Yet even there, he found gratitude. Gratitude for a kind word, gratitude for a memory of his wife, gratitude for the simple fact that he could still choose his attitude. And from that gratitude, he birthed resilience that no guard, no prison, no whip could destroy. Gratitude is not weakness. Gratitude is strength, because it steals the oxygen from anxiety. It reminds you that you have already survived storms, and therefore you have reason to trust yourself in those to come. And yet, gratitude is not the final layer, for there is one more truth that must be spoken: mastery. Inner mastery is the summit of all human development. It is when you no longer live as a puppet of your emotions, but as their master. It is when fear may knock, but it no longer commands. It is when anxiety may whisper, but you smile and say, I know who I am. This is the essence of my philosophy, self-mastery. The ability to control your thoughts, direct your emotions, discipline your habits, and shape your destiny. For if you cannot rule yourself, how can you ever hope to rule the future? Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, wrote to himself in his meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Over 1,000 years ago, he told the same truth we forget daily. The future cannot be mastered, but the self can. And when the self is mastered, the future loses its terror. So let us connect the chain. Discipline prepares you. Clarity guides you. Belief fuels you. Purpose anchors you. Action propels you. Resilience sustains you. Adaptability protects you. Gratitude grounds you. Mastery liberates you. With these, what is left to fear? The anxious man lives as if tomorrow is a monster crouching in the dark. The mastered man lives as if tomorrow is clay, waiting to be molded. And here is the secret. The future you fear is often nothing more than the reflection of your untrained mind. Train it, shape it, command it, and tomorrow bows. Do not forget history belongs to those who mastered themselves, not those who predicted the weather. Lincoln did not know the war would be won, but he mastered his resolve. Edison did not know the light would shine, but he mastered his persistence. Jobs did not know the iPhone would dominate, but he mastered his vision. Musk does not know Mars will be colonized, but he masters his audacity. So what about you? Will you let anxiety steal your years, your dreams, your very life? Or will you rise, master yourself, and take the hammer of destiny in your own hands? You may tremble, you may doubt, you may fall 1,000 times, but mastery is not perfection. Mastery is return. Return to discipline, return to vision, return to faith, return to purpose, return to gratitude. Again and again until even anxiety grows tired of trying to defeat you. That is how champions are made. That is how legacies are forged. Not by erasing fear of the future, but by refusing to bow to it. And now we arrive at the threshold, the place where all philosophy must become flesh, where all thought must become action, where all preparation must meet the storm. Because here is the reality. The future will come. It will not ask your permission. It will not wait for you to be ready. It will arrive like a roaring tide, sometimes carrying gifts, sometimes carrying wreckage, sometimes both in the same wave. And so the question is not, what will the future bring? The question is, who will I be when it arrives? Do you see now why the anxious man dies 1,000 deaths before he reaches the grave? He suffers in advance, punishing himself for disasters not yet born. He writes tragedy in his mind and then cries at his own fiction. Meanwhile, the man of mastery walks into tomorrow calm, steady, unshaken, not because he knows the details, but because he knows himself. This is the final victory. To replace the question, what if the future breaks me, with the declaration, nothing can break me because I am already forged. Think of the men and women who altered history. They were not prophets. They did not possess crystal balls. They possessed conviction. When Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, she did not know what the future would hold. She only knew who she was. When Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, he could not see the outcome of his suffering, but he knew his spirit was unbreakable. When Elon Musk poured his last dollars into SpaceX, facing bankruptcy and ridicule, he could not guarantee success, but he trusted his audacity. The common thread? They mastered themselves, and the future bowed. And here is where you must stand tall, because your life is not a rehearsal. Every moment you spend consumed by anxiety is a moment you trade away from creation. Every day you waste fearing tomorrow is a day you surrender the brush that could have painted it. You were not born to tremble. You were not born to obsess over shadows. You were born to build, to create, to rise, to conquer. And you do not conquer by controlling what comes, you conquer by controlling what you bring to it. So let me speak directly to you. Stop rehearsing ruin. Stop feeding the parasite of anxiety with endless what-ifs. Stop letting your imagination serve your fear instead of your vision. Decide here and now that the future will not be your master. You will be its architect. And when the whispers of doubt return, and they will, you answer them with discipline. I am prepared. You answer them with clarity. I know where I am going. You answer them with belief. I trust in my vision. You answer them with purpose. I have a why stronger than fear. You answer them with action. I move forward regardless. You answer them with resilience. I rise every time I fall. You answer them with adaptability. I bend, but I do not break. You answer them with gratitude. I already have more than enough. You answer them with mastery. I command my mind. It does not command me. That is how you win. That is how you destroy anxiety at its root. Not by begging for a certain future, but by becoming so unshakable that no future can defeat you. Imagine for a moment that you live this way. Imagine a life where your mornings begin not with dread, but with determination. Imagine a life where uncertainty excites you because you trust your ability to bend it into opportunity. Imagine a life where fear of the future no longer chains you, but fuels you to prepare, to train, to sharpen. Imagine the calm confidence of knowing, no matter what comes, I will rise. This is not fantasy. This is the destiny of anyone who dares to master themselves. But you must decide. You must choose this path. consciously, daily, relentlessly. Because if you do not, anxiety will choose for you, and anxiety always chooses change. Remember this truth. History will not remember the anxious man. History will not carve statues for those who tremble their lives away, who rehearse their tragedies until the grave. History remembers the bold, the clear, the believers, the purposeful, the resilient, the adaptable, the grateful, the masters. So, what will history remember about you? Will it tell the story of a soul consumed by what ifs? Or will it declare that you lived with such power, such faith, such vision, that even the future itself bowed to your will? The choice is here. The choice is now, and it is yours alone. Do not fear tomorrow. Build it. Do not tremble at uncertainty. Bend it. Do not beg for peace. Create it. You are not a victim of the future. You are its author. And every word you write with your thoughts, your actions, your resilience, your discipline, that is the story your tomorrow will tell. So rise, stand, declare it with your life. I am not anxious about the future. The future is anxious about me. Because when you live this way, when you truly embody this fire, you stop fearing what's ahead and you start becoming what's ahead. And that, my friend, is the end of anxiety. That is the birth of destiny.